Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Olga Tamanova and welcome in Media Center Ukraine. Today we invited you to present the new projects under the name Building Gender Inclusive Recovery together with the Women's Movement of Ukraine. So in Ukraine we launched the new recovery project that will be performed by the consortium headed by FOKUS organization, Norway, and Ukrainian partners, Ukrainian Women's Fund and Strada, with the support of the government of Norway. This project will be aimed at strengthening the capabilities of the Ukrainian women's organizations, implementing gender inclusive recovery approaches, and the project is aimed at strengthening our civic society. So today we're going to be discussing in greater detail all that, but before I would like to present our speakers today. Kateryna Levchenko, the ombudsperson in charge of gender policy, also Mildrid Mikkelsen, the program director of the FOKUS organization Norway, Natalia Karbowska, director on strategic development of the Ukrainian Women's Fund, and Maryna Lehenka, the president of Strada, Ukraine. Thank you for joining us here today. And we're going to be discussing this new project, but we recognize that it's all about coordination with the government. So let me give the first floor to Ms. Kateryna, asking the simple question, why the government believes that gender mainstreaming in recovery is important, and speaking about the cooperation, who and how should we involve to make this cooperation efficient? Thank you, Ms. Olga. Hello, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, listeners. We are meeting often enough in this hall, luckily, yes, luckily, because it's only helps to highlight that women's rights, gender equality, recovery, reparations, all the topics that I'm involved in are of high resonance with this society. And I would like to invite the organizations that will be involved in the gender inclusive recovery projects, the Ukrainian Women's Fund and Strada Ukraine NGO, with support of the government of Norway and in cooperation with the FOKUS organization. Thank you, esteemed partners, for your proactive stance, for the ability and readiness to work with the government and for Ukraine. Of course, this level of synergy is important. You, Ms. Olga, asked why is it important and why the government focuses attention on the gender components in recovery projects. Well, the gender mainstreaming and the equal rights and of men and women are those stepping stones that suggest that gender equality should be reflected in every sphere of government management, everyday life, national, regional, local levels, because the recovery is a very powerful, very multi-layer and multi-dimensional project. And if other processes might be efficient only when they're gender sensitive, when, well, what does it mean? They take into consideration the interests and the needs and the participation and the voice of different groups of men and women. So really the recovery is the same, but on a different level of magnitude. And that's why our project is structured in light of this priority. And the government reflected this priority in the National Action Plan to deliver on 1325 resolution, women and security. We're finalizing the second stage for the years 21, 25, and then the next phase starts 26 through 2030. And finally, we have a separate chapter that is aimed at ensuring the participation of women at all the levels of recovery and forming it as gender sensitive. So this is a very good platform and basis for implementing the project, because the state, the government, are interested in it, but it's also the result of our joint work and the vision of the civic society and the women's organizations in particular, that without their participation, without the involvement of women, no successful recovery is possible. And we hope that this project will help in implementing this plan, because this 1325 draft action plan is at the Ministry of Social Policy right now, and the next stage will be launching public hearings, which is extremely important. You also asked what should we take as the basis. Well, luckily, this is not the first project. This also has to be taken into consideration, namely that we keep moving forward using all the available tools, platforms, materials, guidelines, and trying to focus on the gaps. Unfortunately, too many of them left. But back in 2023, after the conference on recovery in London, the gender mainstreaming and inclusivity recovery platform has been established, and Strada was instrumental in doing that, and luckily the panelists here today with us, all that helped us to go through a multitude of analytical training and other training programs and workshops. Now this platform unites representatives of more than 70 NGOs. Recognizing the need to involve our development partners at the level of the governments and capitals, the capital cities of the countries that are actively support Ukraine in our justified struggle against the unjustified Russian aggression. In Berlin in 2024, the Alliance for Gender-Oriented and Inclusive Recovery of Ukraine was established, the goal of which is to promote the governments, not only the governments, but businesses that help Ukraine to be gender sensitive in their programs, because we can set as many goals as we can, but if the international technical assistance that comes to Ukraine doesn't take those goals on equal gender rights of men and women, it will just make the work so much difficult. And now we have 100 participants, 121 countries, 7 representatives of private sector, and 53 NGOs. So such platforms, on the one hand, are a good foundation for sure. But you know what? Any foundation is all about future development and growth. So the community development plans, regional development plans should include gender components, so that all our officials should recognize how important it is that people will be aware of that, and thus we can make it all happen. Thank you, Kateryna. Sometimes we think that things are not moving forward as fast as we would like it to, but still we can see how fast we are growing even in the time of war. Miss Mildrid, the next question is to you. As far as I know, this is not your first time here in Ukraine, and your organization, FOKUS, has been helping Ukraine systematically in the time of war, which is extremely important for us, and we're so much grateful to you. But at the same time, I would like to ask you about this project, about those senses and goals and values invested into this project, and how you plan to involve the Ukrainian partners in implementing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor, Commissioner, to share the floor together with you today and our partners and our colleagues, because the Ukrainian Women's Fund and Strada is not only our partner organizations, they are our colleagues. FOKUS is short for Forum for Women and Development, and FOKUS is an umbrella organization for international gender equality, deeply rooted in the women's movement in Norway. We work to strengthen women and girls' rights and their access to resources. FOKUS was founded in 1995, and actually today we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of FOKUS. And while there is a big celebration in Norway, I can not think of any better place to stay here together with you today. Because the collaboration we have developed with Strada, Ukraine, and with the Ukrainian Women's Fund lies at the core of what FOKUS is and stands for. International solidarity with women and girls in war and conflict, or affected by war and conflict, the promotion of women's rights, gender equality, and the freedom for women from violence and abuse. This collaboration and this project wouldn't have been possible without the support from NORAD, the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. So we are very grateful for this support. And actually we are quite proud of the Norwegian government that prioritizes the involvement of women in the development of recovery plans in all these topics and all the topics related to recovery, and that this forms part of the Nansen support program. Because this means that it's really, it is really something that the government prioritizes. And of course, for FOKUS, this collaboration and this project is very important. It's important, but because it's a way and gives us a possibility to show and have an active support to Ukraine, and it enables us to support women and women's organizations in Ukraine. One of our main priorities is women, peace and security, and recovery is a key component in this, of this agenda. And over the years, FOKUS have been supporting women's organizations and women's involvement in peace processes in different countries. In peace negotiations, we have supported women in the context of war and conflict with legal assistance, and help for survivors from sexual violence and so on. But for us, this project is quite unique. This focus on recovery and the involvement of women in the recovery process. For this project is actually groundbreaking in the sense that it will provide valuable lessons and valuable knowledge about gender responsive recovery that can be shared with other countries. Both with governments, but also with women's organizations and women. And FOKUS as a platform, international platform, can help spread this knowledge further. So you should really be proud of this initiative. We are also very satisfied with the fact that the project addresses violence against women and human trafficking. Because this is another key priority for us, and because violence against women and human trafficking prevent women to take an active part in society. So addressing these issues are vital to enable women's participation and to genuinely have an inclusive and a process and of recovery, and that will benefit everyone. Thank you.
Дякую, Мілдрид. Дякую, що ви тут.
So, Miss Natalia, let's talk more about the goals of this project, about those partners that you will be involving in its implementation. Thanks a lot, and good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Thank you, Olga, for this question, but first I would like to join the happy birthday remarks, because this is a great opportunity to tell our great partners, FOKUS, with such a great anniversary, 30 years, wow. On the one hand, that's a lot, right? So much experience, so many countries, so many people you help. But on the other hand, 30 years, come on. Everyone wants to be 30, right? So much lies ahead of you as a young person, as a young organization. So it's great that this anniversary we spent together here in Ukraine. Thank you for that. That just once again reiterates what values you have, and it's really a demonstration that your values echo our values, right? Kateryna, Maryna, it's about sisterhood, about partnership, about joint support. So responding now, Ms. Olga, to your question, you know what? I would like to start with the name of the project. The name echoes the recovery from the standpoint of the involvement of women, because our Ukrainian Women's Foundation is all about women, because we believe that if we want that the political processes in the country at all the levels, national, regional, community level, if we want those policies and processes to be efficient, to deliver to people, people should become part and parcel of those processes. They have to be together with decision makers at the tables where those decisions are taken, and they have to be where those decisions are being implemented, being one of the deliveries. And this is the philosophy of our project, be together. In order for the recovery, gender responsible recovery processes, exactly what we recognize as an important priority for Ukraine in the context of women in peace and recovery, it should be systemic, transformative, so that these would be the processes that will be efficient for years to come. And for that, four things are important. First, strong civic society, strong women's movement, which would be an important component of this joint coalition project that the Ukrainian Women's Fund would be instrumentally involved in. We support, based on the existing organizations in 3 regions of Ukraine, the creation of hubs. The hubs where we will have our instructors who would be training, coaching the Ukrainian NGOs, women's organizations, helping them to strengthen their institutional capabilities so that they would be mature enough and strong enough to help in women, peace, security, but also recovery initiatives. Another thing, important thing, speaking about gender sensitive and gender transformative recovery, we need to use clear methodologies or guidelines so that we will all speak in the same language, so that we will all use the same criteria of gender responsible and gender sensitive recovery, so that people at the regional and local level would have the same understanding themselves. And that's why we would involve our subject matter experts and our partners, and you, Ms. Kateryna, hopefully personally would also be involved in this process, so that those methodologies, guidelines, training courses that we will develop will meet the highest quality standards, that they would be really efficient and help us to deliver what we hope to deliver. So we will deliver those methodologies, and our instructors at those centers and hubs will be conducting trainings and workshops using those methodologies. For that, we need data and analysis. And here, we'll continue working with the network of regional analytical centers. We have already discussed in your media center what those gender centers are being delivering in Ukraine. Their performance is ongoing. We will analyze existing policies, suggest how to make them even more efficient, and obviously everyone involved in the project would be able to use the data and analytics in their own work. And another aspect of importance are grants, something that the Ukrainian Women's Fund was doing from day one in our 25-year history. We believe that our women's movement, feministic movement, our organizations need resources to ensure the ability to keep delivering. And so it's our job to support women's organizations in those 9 regions that we will be involved, but additionally in 18 communities in those regions, so that their vision of gender transformative recovery would become a reality through such grant support. And another important component of our work is communications. In our bubble, in our audience, we use terms gender inclusive, gender responsible, gender transformative recovery. But when we come to the grassroots level, to the communities, to those people who are the end beneficiaries of all our strategies, not always we can see that people treat those notions naturally and in the way that they understand it from the practical standpoint, not in the terms of words or terms, but focusing on supporting the needs of women in those particular communities and how the whole community benefits from this. And we will do it through communication strategies. And we expect that together, as part of this joint project, in synergy with the government authorities, we will come up with such models. And Mildrid just mentioned that we have the expectation that those models through FOKUS could be used as experience and lessons learned by other countries and women's organizations. And of course, 9 regions and 18 communities, that's just the beginning, because all the tools, all the instruments that we'll be able to develop, we would use to then share in other regions of Ukraine, and hopefully the government and the international partners will help us to scale up. So once again, I would like to use this opportunity to thank all our partners, the governments of Ukraine, the Embassy of Norway, and to thank the Ukrainian government for being with us. And more to come. Ms. Natalia, clarification question about the hubs. You said 3 hubs will be opened. Do you know in which particular regions you will open those hubs? Yes. We identified 9 regions covered by the project, and they will be united using cluster principle, north, south, and west. Kherson, Odessa, and Mykolaiv regions will cover south. In the west, that's Transcarpath and Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk regions, and our north, or even north eastern Poltava, Sumy, and Chernihiv regions. Thank you for those clarifications. Ms. Maryna. Of course, we know that Strada has been working for years now on gender-related violence topic. So how all that experience could be implemented and used in this new project. Thank you, Ms. Olga, esteemed colleagues, partners, friends, listeners. It's my pleasure to welcome you all here today. And since Strada Ukraine is also the organization that has 28-year experience of working in Ukraine, and this is the organization that is part of the Ukrainian women's movement, for us it's a great honor and great pleasure and thing of importance to be part of this initiative that combines unites the Ukrainian women's movement in one vision. And this vision is to help Ukraine to be recovered with the being sensitive to the needs of people and being gender balanced. And speaking about the civic society, today I believe it performs a very important, very sensitive role. It's a certain barometer and engine of changes because it's very sensitive to the changes happening around us. And through the work of the NGOs, we can see that how certain decisions impact the life of the society, impacts the needs of people at all the levels and in all of the communities. At the same time, certain local initiatives, they are able to impact the government system by scaling up the best practices and the best experience. It's important to scale it up at the national level. Unfortunately, the full-fledged war that is raging in Ukraine, of Russia against Ukraine, not only ruins infrastructure, but of course it's critically important, but it also affects people, their health and mental state, and women and children turn out to be the most vulnerable categories, suffering the most from this war. And of course we can not forget about the human trafficking issues, certain conflict-related sexual violations, gender-related violence. Don't forget how many internally displaced persons, IDPs, have became residents of the communities in the safest regions. And so those communities, of course, face their own set of problems, but the communities closer to the front lines, they also have lots of IDPs, but at the same time, they face a lack of certain services and municipal services in particular, and together with the Ukrainian Women's Fund, we are focusing on that, and in the selected regions, the ones that we call northern, well, we take Poltava, Mykolaiv, Ivano-Frankivsk region, one region of all those three north, south, and west areas. The Strada Ukraine, starting from 1997, runs the hotline on prevention of domestic violence, human trafficking, and gender discrimination. This hotline is not just a support service, but we are the mirror of the problems that our society has, but along with the problems, we recognize the needs. So many applications, petitions, calls, and requests came from the regions that we selected because they proved to be the most in need of our attention. And another positive trend that I can observe is that CV, conflict-related sexual violations, domestic violence, conflict-related violence is no longer taboo. Previously, ladies were afraid of bringing up those cases. But now, through this initiative, we will give them the voice. And finally, hopefully, the government will respond to the petitions and pleas coming from those women, because our job is to give them the voice, but it's important that this voice is heard so that it will be a positive experience of sharing information about such cases. So it comes hand in glove. The ability to speak up, but also the ability for the government to respond to such voices. And La Strada is exactly this bridge. And we have some systemic solutions at the regional, at the local level that allow these communities and the officials to respond adequately to such petitions. Not to be formalistic, but to be really helpful, preventing domestic violence, responding to human trafficking information. And again, the recovery that will come should be gender sensitive, because now we have more than half of the Ukrainian population are women. And at the community, at the grassroots level, their voice should be important in all the recovery projects. And La Strada Ukraine, as part of this initiative, will be focusing on the support to the survivors of crimes through, well, using our hotline capabilities, making their voices heard, and training the local self-government authorities, officials, and community residents, training them on how to be partners, how to make NGOs and local authorities to become partners, sharing our practical experience through various cases, and hopefully making it a systemic change, first at the local, then at the regional, and finally at the all-national level. We are grateful to FOKUS. We're grateful to the government of Norway, our partners from the Ukrainian Women's Fund, for this ability to combine the international solidarity with our experience with the voices of the survivors whose voices need to be heard. And it goes without saying, we're grateful to our governments and to the gender ombudsperson in particular for the constant and reliable cooperation that we enjoy with you. And this project will only make it even stronger, thus making the project to be useful not only for individual women's cases, but also to communities, regions, and the country at large. Thank you, Ms. Maryna. Friends, your comments or questions by raise of hand, but I would like to ask you this. Gender responsible recovery is a term that is better understood to some, less understood to others, but I would allow each one of you to tell us what it means to you. So what do you personally invest in this? Ms. Kateryna, let's start with you. Thank you. I'll make a spoiler. On November the 5th, we will present the vocabulary of gender responsible recovery exactly for this particular reason, so that all of us will start using the unified terminology. And this vocabulary or glossary has been designed by the EURFEM, an NGO, which is the partner of all of us. Well, not under this umbrella of this project, but with other projects. And as an ombudsperson and my whole staff work a lot with them, and I know the Ukrainian Women's Fund supported this project, and they give a very clear term to what the gender responsible recovery is all about. Well, we involved the Ukrainian National Commission on the standards of Ukrainian language, so it's already very official, so November the 5th presentation. But since you asked my interpretation of this term, well, for me, the key is gender here, and gender equality. And the Ukrainian national legislation already says that it's equal rights of men and women and the ability to use those rights. So for me, we are recovering this equality of rights in its exact term. Ms. Mildrid, a couple of words about what does it mean for you personally.
Well, for me personally, it's about eliminating all obstacles for the participation, the active participation of women and girls. Then we have to address gender equality. We have been addressing that for many years in Norway, and this is something, for instance, in Norway we need to continue to address, because we haven't reached where we would like to be still. So this is something that needs to be addressed, and as I touched upon, also other factors like violence against women in all its forms.
Дякую. Пані Наталю, гендерне відповідальне відновлення. Що це для вас?
Ms. Natalia, what does it mean for you? Well, for me and for the Ukrainian Women's Fund, this is about cooperation and coalitions. Well, I intentionally didn't mention this word coalitions, but it goes without saying that this is one of the most successful Ukrainian practices in localization of the Ukrainian women, peace, security agenda, and Women's in Ukraine 2035 program. So for me, gender responsible recovery is about cooperating with 9 pilot regions through creation of new coalitions. Coalitions 1325, as they're known. So for me, this is cooperation and coalitions. Also, gender responsible recovery for me, and lots of you know or heard for many years this principle, build back better. When we have created 10 blocks as part of the gender mainstreaming and inclusivity recovery, we created 10 of those blocks, and we decided to transform it a bit. So, big back with women is better for all. So, when you involve women in building back, it would definitely make it all better. One way of putting it. So, that's what the gender responsible recovery for me, Miss Maryna. Well, it seems that all the bases are covered already, right? But if not repeating others, for me, gender responsible recovery is about not only inclusivity, but being sensitive to the needs of people, not to only learn about those needs, but to make those needs met, because we are analyzing the needs to meet them. And this could be done only through gender balance approach. Yaroslav Platko from public broadcaster Suspilne. Thank you for your presentations. And my question goes to La Strada representative. It might be outside of the context of today's session, but still, domestic violence, human trafficking in the years of war. The statistics has changed on the number. What are the trends? And the question to the Ukrainian Women's Fund representative. Our authorities talk a lot about recovery, but even the new American president's arrival suggests that we still don't know when the victory would come, when the war would be over. So wouldn't it be a dissonating factor talking about recovery without having victory at hand? Well, thank you. Let me start with domestic violence and human trafficking trends. So the first trend was in 2022. In the first months of war, we received almost 0 calls, which was quite logical because even though there were some calls, but it was rather exception than the rule that somebody still called. Then, for a while, this topic of domestic violence was artificially silenced because of the other more important needs for the country to survive. But still, by and large, the government and the country and people recognize that domestic violence becomes now even more important than in the peacetime, because the level of aggression in the society has increased in the time of war. So then the next trend, after it went down almost to 0, then it went up again. And the current trend, we receive more calls now than before the full-fledged invasion started in 2022. And the trend is that on the monthly basis, it keeps increasing. Well, there is a seasonal trend. In summertime, calls reduce the number of calls, but still the trend is for slight increase. Also, another trend is calls from children and youth. The number of their calls doubled, increased 2-fold. about domestic violence in households, and bullying and violence outside of the household environment. So unfortunately, these are two trends, but we need to accept and acknowledge them, because we're just a mirror. We mirror what's happening, and if you see what's happening, you can react to that better. Ms. Natalia? Well, your second question to me, I would entertain from my personal experience. In 2022, in the first shelling of Kyiv, the missile hit the house next door, but our house had all the windows and doors shattered, and we decided that we'll fix the windows and doors, but we'll do the walls later on. And we postponed it for 2 years, but 2 years later we decided, no, we need to recover our house. Because if you postpone it, it will only make things better. And when we visit regions, come to communities, local communities, we can see that you cannot postpone the recovery. The recovery is all about today. If we don't rebuild the kindergarten in a village, then women would not be able to work because there would be nobody to leave the children with. So I'm categorically convinced that the recovery is very timely. And actually, it should have started yesterday, you know? I mean, we're already involved quite proactively, but we should have been even more in the past. It should have been the priority as of yesterday. I would like to also join and echo your response to this question, even though it was addressed to you, but I cannot stay silent. So, about the recovery. You're not the first one who asked this question. It's a sort of a philosophical question. Recovery before the victory, recovery after the victory, you know. But for me, this process is of huge importance for today, not for tomorrow. And I will give you 3 arguments that would help to illustrate why we need to start the recovery today. I just came back from Kharkiv, from business trip. Unfortunately, Kharkiv has not been selected in those 9 pilot regions. But still, as you know, this is a very, well, second largest, strong city, but it's exposed to shellings not once, but a couple of times a day. And after every shelling, when you have roads ruined, highways, so first responders arrive, and they see a huge hole in the middle of the road. And it's great if water pipes or electricity cables are not ruined, but if it's just a hole in the road, then by afternoon it will be all fixed. And then you go for lunch and you're back in a peaceful city. I cannot imagine Kharkiv with all those daily scars that it already sustained and will sustain. This is the city of closed windows where the central street buildings, you can see that there are no glasses in a glass in the windows, only the wooden covers. But when the sun goes up, you just consider it to be shades, and roads are fixed, lots of flowers and nice bushes planted. You come to the downtown Shevchenko Park, and you can feel yourself in a peaceful environment, in a very comfortable psychological situation. So the recovery here and now is important for all of us. Secondly, when we speak about this process of recovery is through the gender transformative or gender responsible way, it's all about making all that was ruined even better after the recovery, but it will take time. So when we say it should have started, well, it should start in our heads. We need to start thinking differently. And it takes longer time to change the way we think, like in Kharkiv. They think fast when fixing the road because they know how psychologically it impacts people. And thirdly, the recovery is all about people. You call it human capital. I would just call it's all about people. Once again, we cannot say that we will come back to this topic after the war is over, but people live here and now. People eat and breathe today. And so you cannot ignore the need for people to keep living in a better environment. And for that, you need to start recovering there, of course, in a reasonable way. It doesn't make sense to do something that will not generate economic or psychological results straight away. But the fact that we need to start recovering the country today, that goes without saying. And the first question was about domestic violence and the conflict-related sexual violence. And again, we don't know the scale of all that because we have no access to temporarily occupied territories. But our today's pain is that the children's hotline, a national hotline that Strada operates for more than 20 years now, close to 20 years now, right? Starting from 2006. It's not a 24/7 operation now, as it was at the beginning of the full-fledged invasion, because there are no resources, no funding. So we heard the trend. The trend is that children and youth start calling more, but the hotline from July 1st had to cut down on its hours of operation. It's no longer 24/7. Of course, esteemed listeners, you can keep calling it, but know that it now not 24/7, but in business hours. So our international partners, hear us out. We need to help Strada to fix the hotline back to 24/7 operation. Thank you, Ms. Kateryna, for such important clarification. I would like to thank all of you for being interested in this topic, which is extremely important. Thank you, Ms. Kateryna, for being the leader in this topic. Our NGOs, thank you for your constant persistence, and to our partners, you are our reliable support. Thank you. Let's keep working together for our joint victory. Thank you, our forces of defense, and glory to Ukraine. Glory to its heroes.